We're gonna get started.
I'm gonna back there.
Okay.
It'll be better for you.
Yeah, no problem. Hi, thanks for coming. Your pizza is en route, so should be here shortly.
Getting really good at that part.
Yeah. A little bit getting closer and closer to when it's supposed to be here. I just wanted to do some brief introductions. I know a lot of you have already been here, so thanks for coming back. Again, my name is Alyssa Marcy. I'm the long-range planner for the UG's Planning and Urban Design Department. And I am managing the citywide comprehensive plan update, which is called Plan KCK. I'm going to hand it over to Dwayne. If you can just go around, say your name and.
Okay, I'm Dwayne, the Executive Fellow and Housing Coordinator for the UG.
Alyssa Bynum, Commissioner, Unified Government at Large, District 1.
So we saw a stakeholder business owner.
Okay, yeah, we can add neighborhoods too.
Okay, my name is Mia Bell. I'm with Local Neighborhoods. I live in Cathedral.
I am Wesley McCain. I live in Strawberry Hill, work at the Public Health Department, work on fundraising and public policy engagement.
My name is Kayla Hauer. I'm Livable Neighborhoods as well. I live in the White Oaks neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Hannah Connor. I work at the health department as well, and I live in the Rosedale.
I'm Tommy. I'm the executive director from Downtown Shareholders and representing downtown KCK.
Randy Greaves and Serve Reservations in the Planning and Design Department of Rosedale.
I'm Tanya Love, and I live off of 27th.
Hello, my name is Shantae Madison. I'm the owner of Madison's Towing Company, and I live in Crystal Ridge.
I'm Sarah Schaefer. I'm in Public Works, and I'm in the Legends.
So do you want to start over there?
Oh, hi. Yeah, I'm Michael Soler. I'm from Riverside, city of Riverside. And as much as I'm involved as a planning commissioner there, and I do some other kinds of work in human resources. So I'm very happy to be here and observe.
And I'm Ashley Hand. I'm the Director of Strategic Communications and County Administration and live in Strawberry Hill.
I'm Kristen McNair, Public Information Officer for the UG, and I live in the Piper area.
I'm Karen Daniels. I am on the UG Parks Board Commission 4. I'm District 4, and I'm also the project manager for Boston Daniels Park on 8th and Madero.
I'm Rochelle Donald. I'm the neighborhood equity liaison for the mayor's office.
Shannon Harris, I live in the Brentwood neighborhood.
I'm Eric Schluter, and my family and I just recently moved over to the Western Highlands over at Northeast.
And I'm Steve Bird. I'm the digital content manager for UG, and I'm taking role. And unfortunately, I didn't get a lot of your names. So if you all could come up and
When you get your pizza,
yeah, afterwards.
Do you want to introduce yourself and talk?
Sure, I do.
Yes, Mrs. Pritchard.
Good morning. My name is Nada Townsend. I am currently the Heritage Trail Coordinator for Groundwork Revitalization Group in the Northeast Corridor.
Okay, awesome. And we have a couple people joining us online. David, do you want to start off with intro?
Yes, hello everybody. My name is David Burrell. I'm with Future IQ, and we're working. Our portion is working on the economic development strategy.
Justin?
Yes. Excuse me. Yes. Hi, I'm Justin Carney. I'm with Development Strategies, and we are on the comprehensive plan team as well as assisting the UG on the developer RFP process for some of the UG owned sites.
Hi, I'm Heather Brannigan with Future IQ, Vice President of Foresight Research. Happy to be here.
I think that's everyone for now online. So just to show of hands, how many people have been to a pizza and planning meeting before? Most of you. That's awesome.
Are we supposed to come to more than one?
Well,
Yes, come as many as you can.
Excellent.
Yeah, I guess I know
Okay, good.
pizza, right? Okay, well, I'll just do a short recap of kind of why we're here and what we're doing. So we have this big comprehensive plan process going on right now, which is the first time in a long time that we're being able to vision for our future in Wyandotte County and Kansas City, Kansas. And so it has a lot of different components. As you heard, we have some of our consultants here that are working on economic development. We have historic preservation, which Randy's working on as well. But it's going to be an opportunity to address a whole bunch of different topics. And so part of this process has involved opening up our internal meetings to the public, which is why we're having these here. Is the pizza?
Yes.
Nice. Okay, so before we break for pizza, I just wanted to kind of give that update. So here is where we're doing internally, where we plan for upcoming events for the comprehensive plan and all of its components. And we're also looking for you for your feedback and your participation. So before we break, today, what we're actually going to be focusing on is we have the Vision Summit, which is next Tuesday from 9 to 1. We definitely invite all of you to come if you have the opportunity. But the Vision Summit is primarily going to be focusing on economic development. And so we're kind of going to get a demo beta test of that today. But with that being said, why don't you go ahead and grab some pizza and break? And check in with Stephen too, if you don't mind.
We're gonna meet you guys just for a minute, just so you don't have to hear us wrestling around getting pizza. Really fast.
Okay. All right. We're gonna get started with the presentation. I just wanted to make sure, can you guys hear us now? Okay, Leslie, do you have your pizza?
I have my yogurt. It's not nearly as exciting. Very envious of you all.
Well, we'll pass it over to you guys. I know Leslie, you were going to run through the market snapshot, but you can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Yeah, David, do you want to get things kicked off with the group?
Sure, I can do that. Just to make sure we're on the same page here, are you doing a market snapshot, Leslie? Because I'm just going to go through the scenario matrix and the workshop.
I'm happy to talk through the market findings, but it might be helpful to set the stage with the workshop, and then with some time that allows, I can get into some data and some nerdy stuff, but want to make sure we get to some great conversations.
Okay, so let me share this. So you should have that up there in front of you now. So I want to just sort of talk a little bit about Tuesday, and this is a really kind of key part in the year of visioning for the community. And one of the things, so we're obviously part of this sort of big planning process, and our specific task is mostly the economic development strategy, but as companies, as Future IQ and JSA, we do a lot of work on visioning with cities and regions and larger sort of gatherings of people. And one of the things that we've been talking a lot about is using this summit in a way to deliver maximum value to the entire planning process through this year. So we're really bringing our visioning expertise and sort of joining forces with the firms that are doing the comprehensive plan to deliver what we think is going to be a really exciting exploration of the future, and thinking about this in terms of a very forward-looking visionary sense, but developing really strong content that can help guide both the economic development strategy, the comprehensive plan, and the historic preservation planning process as well. I'm not going to go way into the detail of this. I just want to sort of frame this out about how it's going to work so that you're familiar with some of the sort of language and the process. There's a particular methodology we're using. So I just want to sort of map that out for you. But of course, the fun's on Tuesday, so I don't want to blow that either, right? So I'm going to kind of keep you teased a little bit, and hopefully when you come on Tuesday, you can be part of creating these different sort of narratives about the future. So in terms of an agenda, hopefully you can see that clear enough to get the text of it, but I'll just kind of walk through the structure of the day. It's sort of a 9 o'clock to 1 o'clock, so it's pretty intense. I mean, we're going to do a lot of work in a short period of time, and there's going to be a lot of information delivered, but most of it, we're going to be kind of working, in breakout groups, trying to figure out these different sort of versions of the future, and ultimately drilling into what I'm going to ask people to identify as a preferred future, aka a vision for the future. There'll be a little bit of work at the start, which will just be setting context. We have some nice things lined up for that. We're then going to review some of the survey results. So we've got a survey that we'll be sending out to participants in the think tank or in the Vision Summit. That survey should go out today or tomorrow, but it's fairly comprehensive, but we've got a group of people who are pretty committed. So we should get some good data. We'll get some of the state of the economy snapshot. So a real kind of front load on what's going on, what do we know, what's the sort of the mechanics of what's going on in terms of current planning and so on. At 10 o'clock, we're really going to start to pivot to this big future conversation. And we're going to start off with talking about future trends and emergent issues. And I should say too, that the lens on this day is really that 25 year into the future. So we are taking a long-term look at the future. And I'll lay out some trends that are really affecting, middle America, sort of, the Midwest of USA, sort of macro trends that it really creates this bigger kind of contextual understanding of where we're at and what we're going to be dealing with as we go forward. We're then going to present what we call the scenario matrix, and I'm going to show you that today. And then we'll have sort of an hour and a half or thereabouts of people in breakout groups developing these different narratives of the future. Then we're going to into notion of a preferred future, a vision, great keynote speaker for lunch, obviously, and then we adjourn. So it's a mixture of kind of front load and a mixture of kind of highly interactive breakout group work. What we're trying to do with the front load is set the context, but what we're really trying to do in the breakout groups is gather the collective intelligence of the 60 or 80 people who come and bring that into the mix in terms of thinking about the future trajectory. I'll just pause there and see if there's any questions, or Leslie or Heather, if you want to add anything at this point before I dive into the detail. I hear nothing, but that could be because either everybody's mute or there's no questions. All right. So Leslie, did you want to add something, or shall I just keep rolling?
Keep going.
Okay. All right, good. So in terms of, so we've got a few slides. So in terms of the economic development strategic plan, we're kind of at this future scenario and implications. We're going to bring, as I said, bring all that together into this lens. Key trends, I covered that, right? The challenge that we're going to lay down, right? So because we really are wanting to get the most out of this for everybody involved, both as participants, but also the various planning efforts that are going on, we're laying down a challenge, right? So we're putting the gauntlet on the table. So we want to explore the future. We want to be willing to ask the hard questions. And I think there are some hard questions in the future for Kansas City in terms of, you know, what might happen or the way things might go. But also there's a chance to think creatively and perhaps think kind of more ambitiously about the future, because we have this long-term and expansive view that we're sort of laying out through the Vision Summit, and the outcome may well be a new view of the future. Part of what we want to hit on, of course, is we're in this period of, there's a lot of change occurring, right? And, you know, if we thought the world was fast in the last decade, it's going to be even faster in the decade coming, right? So we have all these trends are being amplified and accelerated, changes that are elastic or inelastic. And what I mean by that is some things might change and snap back to the way they were. Some things we may be at permanent tipping points where the world heads quite different. And we want to sort of explore that so that as much as possible, Kansas City is prepared for the future. I'm going to just sort of skip a whole bunch of stuff about future trends that we'll talk about, but we are going to talk about the stakeholder survey, but I really want to focus on this, right? Because this is the kind of bread and butter of the scenario planning exercise. Let me walk you through this, right? And you may not be able to read all the text, but I'll kind of illuminate this as we go. This is a visual diagram, so I'm going to explain it in a kind of a visual sense. So if you think of the big green square in the middle, if you can see that there, think of that as the future canvas. So inside that big green square is all the plausible futures that you could reasonably predict would be in front of Kansas City, Kansas, you know, looking out sort of 25 years into the future. And so this is this really interesting kind of future canvas, you know, it's kind of like, oh, you can think, oh, there's kind of all these different possible iterations of how things could evolve and what outcomes might be, right? So we want to tease that out at the Future Summit on Tuesday. The way we define the future canvas is the big kind of axes in the middle. So the big sort of arrows or the big cross in the middle. And these are what we call future splitting axes, right? So, and the term is very deliberate because, you know, a big topic or a big theme that might shape the future. So for example, development trajectory, right? It could go that way or it could go that way, you know, different directions, would have very different outcomes and implications for how development might occur, where people might live, what the economic status of the community might be, how individuals would fare in the future, and so on, right? So these two big axes create the framework for that scenario matrix for that future canvas that's in the middle. Based on lots of discussion, which included actually my sort of having an opportunity to interview with the commissioners, the county commissioners, which was sort of a month and a bit ago. So one big axis is around what and we're still working on the language, right? But let's call it the development trajectory. So in other words, which way or how does development occur as we go forward? And we have two different possible directions we want to tease out. They're not intended to be good, bad, right or wrong. They're just different directions that development trajectory could go, and then thinking about the implications. So one is what we call expanding. So this notion of, if you think like a model might be, well, just let's keep expanding west, right? So there's plenty of land out there, right? See this sort of greenfield approach to industrial parks, more industrial park models, perhaps, suburban growth models, single family homes, kind of spreading out, greenfield development and so on, probably pretty car centric sort of a future. That's one possible direction on a development trajectory. The other one, at the other end here, we call concentrating, and it's what we want to test here is what are the implications over time if the development trajectory is more oriented towards kind of filling in, right? So thinking about there's all this existing infrastructure. What happens if we kind of focus on bringing that to life, where we sort of maximize the investment that's already occurred, but we're looking at kind of new creative businesses and sort of housing options that might fit in that sort of more the existing sort of space, predominantly really from the urban core and radiating out, but more of a concentrating our efforts there as opposed to expanding to the west. Not right or wrong, good or bad, just different directions on development trajectory. What would be the implication? The vertical axis is around the community and the workforce. So at the bottom end here, we're sort of saying, well, what happens if we just let the community develop and evolve? Let it have at it, right? Market forces, people are going to live where they live. Just let housing market needs be met by the market and developer priorities and so on. Probably more focus on traditional values. Emphasis on sort of safety and education, those sort of things which would feel pretty familiar. So what happens if we go down that path? The other end, we said, well, what happens if there's more intentional intervention or intentional investment, right? Which would actually come with intervention, but that we're really investing in building a strong and equitable community fabric with, basically trying to work on new workplace kind of models, thinking differently about how we foster ideas and culture and, really intentionally investing in developing that community fabric and helping the workforce sort of be local and also be future ready, right? Not right or wrong, good or bad, different directions, right? So what that creates is these, what we call scenario spaces, right? So there's 4 big scenarios, we just simply called A, B, C, and D here. Different versions of the future. Think of these as like railway tracks into the future. So scenario A is what happens, in Kansas City, 25 years in the future, if we go down a path of an expanding kind of orientation on development trajectory, potential investment in the community and workforce, the community fabric, what are the implications over time, right? And so what happens if we're on the journey of scenario A, and then scenario B and C and so on, right? So creating different versions of the future. In the think tank, in the Vision Summit, in the breakout groups, we're going to randomly allocate people to different scenarios, and they're going to go and figure out and predict what the future looks like under each one of those conditions, right? Some of the things we're going to ask them to think about a social fabric and community characteristics. So where's the population? What's the demographics look like? What are the sort of social safety nets? What are, per capita incomes, community vitality, all that kind of stuff. Where are businesses going to be? What type of industries are there? What does the hard infrastructure look like? What's the built environment and landscape look like? So really kind of getting quite tactile in thinking about how the future might look under each of these sort of macro scenarios. And then, actually, I should stop there and see if there's any questions, right? Because I know that's kind of like a big load of stuff, right? I should say, in terms of Tuesday, it's going to be very thought-provoking. We are going to ask people to think, really kind of put our predictive skills to work and go, okay, well, if scenario C was to happen, what would the future look like? And then kind of feel what that's like. Try it on like you're trying on, a set of clothes at the shop, right? And just see how it fits, right? And then you can kind of get a judgment and then try on a different scenario and so on, right? But I'll stop there, see if there's any questions, or Leslie or Heather, if you want to add anything at this point, and then I'll kind of talk about how we identify the preferred future.
Well, and I have just a question for the whole group. I might have missed this at the beginning, but just by a show of hands, who's all planning on attending on Tuesday? I'm going to use my squinting,
Excellent.
squinting eyes to see, but it looks like we've got a bunch of hands raised. Awesome. I'm so thrilled to come in on Tuesday. I've been a part of these workshops that David and Heather have put on, and truly thought-provoking, a lot of really interesting conversations, especially with folks like you that have that interest and that perspective from a planning perspective. Kind of with that, I think one of the things that I'd love to just add into, and I can dive into some more detail on this, but a lot of what this Vision Summit on Tuesday is based on really on the ground realities of what's the current state of the condition, what's the current market, kind of what would a status quo of continuation look like for Kansas City, so that we can get into those, okay, is that what we want? Because when we put forward these types of economic development strategies, comprehensive plans, these bigger planning objectives, that's the tool in the toolkit to start to change the future. So I think that this matrix, some of these conversations more in depth, some of this character role of, what is the future for KCK in Wyandotte County, I think will be very thought-provoking, a pretty fun time. It's going to go fast. I think we'll keep you guys pretty engaged. But with that, again, I'm glad to see it's on your guys' radar. You guys are going to show up. Any questions on the conversation to date, or the kind of what to expect on Tuesday?
Has anybody ever engaged in a blue sky, North Star visioning exercise like this?
Yeah, we had one in Wyandotte County in 2018, same scenario, same master plan in 2018. So we've done North Star a couple times.
Which area plan are you talking about?
The master plan, we had it at the Quindale Center.
The Northeast.
Northeast area plan?
Quindale Center, so this is not the first time. So we've had North Star before.
Sure, and you do that with every long range plan, to be sure. And I would make the point that 2018 was pre-pandemic, right? That alone is a brave new world. Not considering any other factor that's happened in the last 4+ years, right? So what I want to just make sure everybody kind of understands is this is a very broad esoteric conversation, right? It's hard to get your head around. It's sometimes hard for people, even planners, right? So like put yourself in and try to force a scenario that I have biases towards, right? I'm the planner in the room, so I want to go towards intentional investment and concentration, right? Because that's my training, my experience, whatever. But if you force yourself out of that and go into a different scenario, it helps you start to frame a more comprehensive, not just understanding, but eventually strategy. I say all of this to say that this is a long walk to get to where I think everybody in this room wants to be, is what does it mean? What are we going to do? And how do I get there, right? You have to start here. If we start there, it's going to be a mishmash of whose priority gets raises to the top, right? And then we're fighting each other over projects, which is not the goal here. The goal is to collectively understand where we are and how we need to go, which way we want to go and how we're going to get there, right? So this is a big, broad conversation that's going to be kind of difficult to wrap our heads around and workshop it here. So I apologize for that. Go ahead, Mr. Burrell.
Okay, so I want to add one thing, Gunnar. So because I think that was a really good addition there. And of course, what you might be wondering at this point is, okay, we map out these 4 scenarios. So what, right? And we're going to get to where you're talking about, which is what is the preferred future we have. So how we do that. So if you look at this big green square I've been talking about, future canvas, we've now got some brushstrokes on it, right? So we've kind of painted out these different sort of versions of the future. And you'll notice in the background here, we have this sort of 10 by 10 grid that's sort of hatched into the background. What we're going to ask, once we get these sort of 4 big scenarios up and described, we're going to ask people to think about 3 things, right? What's the least desirable future? What's the expected future? and what is the preferred future, right? So the least desirable is clearly the one you do not want, right? That's the least optimal from your perspective for the future. The expected is where do you think you're going to end up if you keep going the way you are, right? So where is your current trajectory taking you? And then obviously, the sort of big question is the preferred future. How we do that is we push the scenarios into the background, and I bring that grid to the foreground, and everybody who attends will be able to do this, right? So you've got this 10 by 10 grid with these big A's and an understanding of what these sort of broad scenario spaces will look like. We're now going to ask people to think about, by selecting in this 100 different possible futures. So there's now 100 different versions of the future that are all subtly different. So as you move across this scenario matrix, you get different emphases at play. And this really gets to the point about appetite for change. So clearly the corners are going to be more extreme versions, or the edges of the scenario matrix are more extreme versions, right? But for example, you could sort of move backwards and forwards on these different axes and sort of get different levels of emphasis that you may want to bring to play. And we're going to ask you to think about, actually locating a cell that represents the expected future, the preferred future, and the least desirable future. And what that'll give us is the ability to be able to build up these heat maps where we'll be able to see what the concentration is of responses around preferred future. So, for example, Gunnar says, well, I'm a planner, so my tendency is to head towards intentional investment and concentrating. Well, there's a whole big world here. And how far do you want to go? Do you want to be really at the extreme end? Do you want to be more on the intentional investment, perhaps a bit of a balance between concentrating and expanding? So we're going to get a real level of, I think, nuanced information about where do people see the actual sweet spot for the future. And then that's the future we want to shoot for. The other thing that we're going to understand is where do you think you're going to end up if you don't do anything different, right? And the difference in location between expected and preferred tells us a lot about how big is the task ahead and what do we need to be moving? What axes do we need to be moving on, and how aggressively do we need to be thinking about the sort of implementation or the planning going forward, right? So I just wanted to add that to just sort of flesh that out a little bit. Because that's how we get to then what is the big answer, which is, okay, what is the sweet spot? What's the preferred future? And that's where we finish our piece of the work on the Tuesday program.
Does this make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
Took a minute, but I'm there now.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me, but I think the diagram may not be the best diagram to represent what the goals are for the master plan, because it automatically creates an adversarial type of approach where it's either about expanding west or infill up in the city. You're already pitting two things against each other. We want both, right? I mean, we want the city to grow, we want the population to grow, we want the economy to grow. The opposite ends of the spectrum that we really should be talking about, and that everyone probably agrees with anyways, do we want the city to expand, as in we want economic development, we want population growth, or do we want it to, do we want people to continue to flee from the area and move to neighboring communities? And I think you can't stop the outflow of population without really trying to achieve all four of these goals. You need intentional investment. You need to let market forces have their way. You need to, fill in the urban scars that we have, and it doesn't mean you have to abandon whatever developments are out at Legends. But this diagram to me tells me, like, I live in the city and I see a bunch of vacant lots and abandoned houses, abandoned apartment buildings, projects, they're complete. If I go out to Target at Legends, I see all this new development. I go, where are our priorities? Obviously, they don't care about my neighborhood.
I think if I can partner in on what he's saying, I think I struggle with going straight to this, right? Like, I almost need something that leads me into where it fits. Like, if we had an activity that says, like, where are these priorities? Maybe we kind of get into this space and then we figure out like where it actually goes. I think this unintentionally creates this either or feeling that just naturally comes up. So I don't know.
Can I just jump in on that too? Because look, I think they're really good comments, right? And that's what I said right at the start. The context for the Vision Summit is we want to be willing to ask some of the hard questions, and we want to be willing to think creatively, right? And there are some pretty clear kind of forks in the road for the future. Now, even with the level of complexity we're able to build into this scenario planning, it still doesn't mirror the full complexity of real life, right? But here's how we get to those two comments, which I just heard, and I'm sorry, I couldn't see actually who was speaking, but if I take the first one, which was around the expanding and the concentrating, right? Well, you can kind of have a little bit of both, right? And that's by moving across this axis. So this is kind of, we're playing out extremities, right? At the end of these sort of arrows is where we're going full hog into this expanding, right? This end here, we're going full bore into the concentrating, right? You might go, well, actually, I think we should be about 2/3 concentrating, but I don't want to lose expanding. So I'm going to peg my point on about here on this continuum, because these are presented as continuums, not either or, right? So, and obviously a continuum is going to have ends, but through the course of that continuum, there's a blending or a mixing of those different emphases as you go. The thing I find in doing this sort of work in lots of different kind of complex settings is the human mind is really good at being able to assimilate and reconcile that complexity, right? I mean, we actually do it all the time, in our own lives, right? And so when we sort of understand what the sort of future looks like in these different scenarios, when we get to the point of, sort of jumping down here to pick an actual cell where you say, okay, I think that's the expected future. People are pretty good at being able to kind of drill in on that. Another way to look at it might be, think about, for example, the more kind of obvious things of where's the least desired future and why, right? So of these 100 different cells here, and obviously we haven't done the exercise yet, we haven't built out the scenarios, right? But you can kind of think, okay, which one of those represents what I definitely don't want that, right? And then what might be where we're going to end up, and then where would I really want to be? And you can build in, because you'll all get to do it individually, you build in the level of risk that you want to have, or the appetite for change that you may feel. Some people, their corners are a little scary because they're kind of extreme versions. Some people like kind of more kind of, they want to have a little bit, but not too much kind of an approach. So people are able to figure that out. So I think once we get into that, once we understand what these scenarios look like, and we get to that point, I think it'll make more sense. I was a little hesitant to kind of front load this too much, right? Because, this is sort of, after we do the scenarios, but I do appreciate your comments, right? And we'll think about how to address those as we frame up the exercise for people as well.
That's a question.
And I think that,
Go ahead. We got a question in the room.
I just would like to know, since there is a vision for this community.
There is not.
It's not.
There is no vision. That's the problem.
Not at all?
We're forming it right now.
Yeah.
You're in the conversation to figure out how we get a vision out of this community.
Okay, do we know what day that we making, is it starting today to making a plan to do the expanding to the?
I don't want to sound again like you're planning here, but every day is a day.
I know that, but I'm talking about.
So we have a lot of area plans that have their own area, right? But the Northeast area plan is not tethered to the downtown area plan, is not tethered to the central area plan, which I would call a single community. They're definitely different neighborhoods, but we're sort of the historic downtown, historic DCK, right? There is no larger vision on top of that. The general plan, some people call them, we're calling it a comprehensive plan, that helps those other area plans fit into where they fit into that larger vision. There is no larger vision. So what we have is 7 area plans that are effectively competing with one another, not working towards the same goal, and then half of our geographic area that doesn't even have an area plan. Right? So we're way behind. And so to start, you have to have that larger vision. So we have our elected officials and mayor and others who speak about their vision. That's not the same thing as the community's shared vision of the future. And that is what we're defining in this process.
So you say that the legend is not connected with this community?
No, it is. I mean, it's connected in a lot of different ways, right? It was an intentional development out west. What I'm saying is the Northeast area plan and the Piper Delaware area plan were created in vacuums from one another. They came up with their own vision. Northeast area comes up with their own vision. Same with other area plan. None of them speak or are trying to implement a larger, broader vision for the entire community. And without that, you have competition amongst one another, right? Which is why some resources go here and others go there, right? I think a lot of people talk about doing these things, but again, and I understand that we wanted to do this generations ago, but we didn't. We just didn't. And now we have a chance to do it. So I know people feel like there's a lot of planning fatigue and all this other kind of stuff, and we're doing our best to assimilate all the many planning activities that are happening across many departments in this year. And so I think what's important here is this is a methodology to do a North Star conversation. There are many different methodologies to start this conversation, but that's the point, is it's the start. Your question, in my mind, is the exact type of thing we should be talking about in these working groups, right? Like you just sparked the debate that I think is supposed to be happening on one of the debates that's supposed to be happening on Tuesday. So I appreciate that. Is it the right methodology? I mean, you know, there's 1,000 of them, right? So I think this one is one, and it's the beginning of a much larger.
I think it's great.
Conversation.
You think it's great?
Well, I'm not trying to, again, I'm just saying there's a bunch of different ways to do it, and we've experienced many different ways to identify North Stars, right? So I think that's just.
I think to kind of like go back to, because I know like the comp plan as an umbrella is kind of this, it's difficult, especially with Kansas City, Kansas, that was consolidated. So we're one city that is typically the size of like 4 cities in other counties, right? So we're this one big city with lots of these very unique spaces within them with their own priorities for their space, but then how do those priorities bridge up, right? So if we have a big overreaching bridge that says we want to be culturally diverse with lots of artistic and history that is preserved, then that umbrella is overreaching. So how does that affect each one of these areas in order for it to be, you know, sustained through the different plans, right? Am I trying to explain it a little? Yeah. So if you can think about this, like we have all these lower things, but now how do we elevate that into this bigger umbrella? So that way we're all speaking the same language, no matter if it's a planner, an engineer, someone who's, where's my parks people up in here? But, you know, parks, got historical preservers, like all of these, like as staff and as people of the community, we can kind of see, okay, this is what is out there. This is how we bring it together, you know? So, and again, I think last time, just real quick, like somebody had mentioned, we need more commissioners in here. We need more, you know, president, because it's their vision, but that's the key right here is traditionally the community has a vision, and then all of our elected officials run off of how are they going to serve towards that vision, right? So I think it's like, as Gunnar said, we've kind of been backwards, hoping that, you know, the horse is leading the cart or the cart's leading the horse, however we want to look at it. But that's, hopefully that kind of gives a spectrum of like the comp plan, not necessarily like down at the base level.
Stephen's had his hand up for a while, and then I know you want to speak too.
Basically, I think, and this is probably more for Tuesday, but we have to understand the history of this particular community and the fact that mistakes were made in good faith for the most part, but they were made. And we need to admit that mistakes were made. And I mean, from day one, the fact that the consolidated city decided to call itself Kansas City instead of Wyandotte, which is the biggest city, was the biggest city in this area. We immediately put ourselves in the shadow of the city across the state line, and it created an inferiority complex that we are still trying to overcome today. And so a lot of this has to come down to the fact that, and I'm not asking for a truth and reconciliation committee, but we have to be open and honest and saying mistakes were made, bad mistakes, and we're going to try to solve them now. We need to go forward and solve those mistakes for the future of our kids and grandkids. So all of this is in relationship to what went wrong at the beginning of this experiment. What do we need to do? Admit it, find a way to fix it, and then move forward.
Just we're here for economic development, and that's money, okay? So some of the things about Northeast Kansas City, so when you talk about funding, because somebody, Commissioner Bynum, somebody is going to be asking for money from private sector. So for the Northeast, we're already in a vision city. That means we're a HUD entitlement city. Anything negative, the Northeast Kansas City 66101, 102, 104, we're eligible to fund the city from these 3 zip codes. We're a HUD entitlement city. We're an empowerment city, but we're not a what you call a economic opportunity zone from 5th and Nebraska all the way back until 27th Street. We missed it. Our commissioner or mayor or whoever didn't vote for us. So that's going to affect private funding. Yeah. So from an economic development, and the Kansas City, Kansas has the most corridor, 35 South and 35 North. So far as transportation, we're on the cusp of the river to where transportation can move. I used to work for Amazon. Before it goes into your house, it goes on a truck, goes on a train or something. So when you talk about economic development, the Northeast Kansas City is primed to be a positive tax base for Wyandotte County. So I want you all to know we already have the structure. What they're adding is the other elements to it. So from a federal standpoint, Northeast Kansas City is prime for funding.
What I always see being left out of the conversation is, I stay off on the 27th area. I'm a mortgage broker. And I did taxes and stuff last year, but that community in that area, some people make between $6,000 to $12,000, and we talk about development, and some of those people own their homes. What we're not talking about is, what about the increase in property taxes? They're already struggling to pay the property taxes they have. Now you bring all of this development. I know when I bought a dollar lot, they said, okay, I'm gonna get a 10-year tax break. So when I build that new house across from my mama's house, my other house and my mom's house, the taxes are gonna go up. So now I got a 10-year break that I don't need, but the people who need, who barely paying their taxes now, their taxes are gonna go up. So what are we gonna do about that? We talk about development, but we're gonna force people who've lived in their homes for 50 years, who own them, out of their house based on the fact that they're not gonna have the money to pay property taxes.
But part of that is the policy discussion where we have to make sure that we're doing good work and not allowing people to be displaced.
Yeah. Right.
And so that's a part of this work. How do we plan to not let that happen?
But that's what I want to hear, part of the plan. I hear the plan that, if you build, you get a 10-year tax break. But I don't hear the plan about those who are already here in that low income area. What break are they gonna get?
Yeah, because that's the same as like public health, we've been talking about the conversation about minor home repair, community development, minor home repair. There is the NRA that's available that if they get their homes repaired, they can apply for that in the NRA program, and then they would get a tax rebate. They would get the increase they would get back in a series of like 2 checks. 2 checks a year. So that's what the thing is, that we have to make sure that those things are in place for our residents, because we're trying to make sure in all of this planning that we are protecting those that are in our community, because without them, we wouldn't have a community to be developing.
And I would just point out, if you remember the 2 continuums, one was about development, the other one was about people, right? So that's probably more critical point of it, you know. I
The
think-
Infrastructure Jobs Act is the answer. You upskilling your community, your kids and your grandkids. I mean, that is the main, when you look up economic development, Infrastructure Jobs Act is the first thing. We have to train our kids for next generation in demand jobs. That's the solution to your question and his response. Infrastructure Jobs Act.
And again, I would just go back to, this is the conversation that defines those policy desires, but also those pitfalls, as you described, right? The traditional American model of wealth generation is home ownership, right? If that's not gonna work for whatever reason, or if there's something we need to do to make it work, we need to have the conversation about that being the core issue. We've heard a lot of people say it's an issue, and we've heard it from the public, and we've heard our elected officials talk about it, but we've never gone past that. We've never gone past that. This is our opportunity to dive into that a little bit, and then at the end of this, figure out what are those things? Do we need to change the way that we do tax sales? Do we need to create new programs? Do we need to focus more on increasing household income so we can take in those property value increases when we improve the value of your property, which I understand the issues that we have with poverty in our community, but if you look at anywhere else in the world or in America, that's their number one economic development goal, is to increase property values for everybody, right? That's like standard economic development practice. And again, we're a unique situation here, so we need to have the conversation about what that looks like.
So by you being the planning man, are you gonna be? I mean, it's very to me with this situation going on, because I know Wyandotte County, as I always, when I call at the unified government, it's always an old county. Oh, well, that's when you want to make it even better, to make it prettier. But when I'm getting ready to ask, is there, Mr. Planner, you're gonna be able to pick out some boards, a president, some people of the communities to start making plans to enhance this community? Could you, are you guys gonna start making meetings for that?
You're looking at it right now. That's you're in it.
And part of, and I might add too, I think one of the reasons why we're here in the home of livable neighborhoods, which is really about our neighborhood organizations and neighborhood empowerment. I mean, that for me, as someone who's relatively new to KZK, seeing how neighbors treat each other in this community has been the most amazing thing. It's the most welcoming place I've ever lived, and it's amazing. We got to figure out how to preserve that, right? Exactly. We've got generations of families that live on blocks together. Yes. That's unique and special, and something that's character of our community. So I think, you know, as you recognize that we're trying to do this planning process differently by engaging you throughout it. So it's messy, right? We're gonna have a lot of conversations. We're gonna go back to the same issue over and over again. But through this process, we start to distill what it is that we're hearing. And then our real focus has been not just on putting out the plan on there, but talking about implementation from the very beginning. And we see our relationship with our neighborhoods as part of that implementation strategy. How do we equip you in your community to make the neighborhood what you want it to be? But then what is the role of the unified government in meeting you halfway to help facilitate that, to enable that, right? Yeah. We can't do it all. We can't be everything to everyone, but we can certainly do a lot of cool things as a convener, as your local government. And I think that's where we're trying to kind of eventually get to, right? Is how do we take all these visions, this vision for the future, and operationalize it so we as an organization are better equipped. We've never had someone working on housing before. I mean, that's mind blowing, right? Never. We are our first Fuse Corps executive fellow here helping us with housing, right? Maybe we're laying the groundwork.
And he's not even a UG employee.
Yeah, he's not even a UG employee. So we have a lot of opportunity to look at who we have on the team to implement this too.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, and the fact, yeah, let's go ahead.
I'm sorry, just 10 seconds, I promise. I wasn't supposed to speak, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. So today's paper was at Quick Trip, Kansas City Star, they get it, read it. Anyway, at the very bottom, there's an article that speaks to your issue on property tax and the process to go about contesting it. And it's a fabulous article. We just thought I would mention.
But the thing is, in the community, so I live in the house I was born in.
Yeah.
4 houses down from my kindergarten best friend. When the government shut down, I was the only one who had a computer. Everybody was coming to my house, I'm like, hey, can you pay my property taxes? Can you do my car note? Because nobody knew that. So I understand what you're saying, there's a contestant, but most of the people in these neighborhoods, they don't have, they can do Facebook, that's about it.
No, I'm saying, there's talking about assessed value, how to go about it, and I just happened to look down and read, and it was phenomenal. I used my 10 seconds.
But I mean, like I said, I've read those articles too, but everybody in that community can't access that or even comprehend what that is. What that
I
means.
think like almost elevating it up even higher than that, like, I know, I'm a numbers person, so bear with me, but you know, from where kind of I'm seated as a community member, and that I just kind of want to know, like, what is like the big vision, right? What do people's needs are for the community? How much does that actually cost to implement and maintain? And then backwards, like loop that, like, what does our economic diversity need to be in order to support that? Like, what does that mean? How many houses do we need to have? How many businesses do we need to have? How many corporations do we need to have interested in calling us home? How many industries do we need to have? You know, like, what does that actually look like? And then are we okay with that? Or is that too much? Or is that not enough? Like, I don't know. Again, I'm a numbers person. I reverse engineer everything in order to like make something possible, which is why I love plans, because they at least give me like a guiding focal point, like how to manage things. But I don't know if like we can kind of almost think of it that way too. Like, this is that like umbrella bridge to start getting those numbers together.
And if I could say too, like about that, Groundworks is doing a lot of really good work in digital equity, and that's what they're trying to get that spread. And so that's something that we need to be talking about, because you know, if we have residents we know we have residents that are dealing with that, so they won't be able to apply for the NRA. You know, so that's
telemedicine or access online school opportunities. I mean, there's so many things in this world that digital infrastructure is essential to our economic vitality, right? And acknowledging that we can't just solve one problem, but we have to look at the whole system of issues. Because part of the advantage of the comp plan process is it gives us the opportunity to look holistically and say, hey, it's great you have scooters, but if you don't have cell phone connectivity, you can't use a scooter, right? And it's very simple stuff. Like, we can have all these shiny objects, but if people can't access them, people can't enjoy them and use them, there's no value. So we need to make sure that we tie that all together. So I think, you know, this is this is one of those processes that every time, and full disclosure, he is my husband, but every time he talks about planning, it is esoteric, right? It is this big kind of long-term thinking 25 years down the road is hard to put into concept, right? But if you look at how fast things have changed in the last 25 years, look at the prevalence of everyone now having a supercomputer in their pocket when they have a cell phone in their hand, right? That is something that has completely changed. So this is kind of the perfect time to have this conversation.
And then my last piece, if you see, when you look around the room, you see neighborhoods that aren't represented, please invite them. Please invite them.
I'm in a neighborhood that, I'm very particular about a nice looking yard, flowers, house. I might not be in the neighborhood, wish I could, but at least I can make my house look decent. That when people come in from out of town or whatever, they can see paper picked up and, you know, just caring about your neighborhood. But I'm also in a neighborhood that I don't see what code is doing to correct some things with some of these houses. It makes that house, make my house look.
Yeah, one thing I've observed here is this was a conversation to talk about economic development. And we've had a lot of conversation about displacement as well. So along with the vision session, which I think is going to be focused on the economic development component, there should be a conversation about displacement during this process as well, and what we're doing, because we weren't supposed to be talking about that today. We're still talking about something else, but it still came up. So,
and the survey that
that's
the team has, that we will send out to everybody planning to attend next week, but to you all as well, has a place to make sure we call this out. This is a huge threat to our community, right? Displacement of our existing neighborhoods. we can consider that a threat. So there is a place in that survey. So I encourage you to take that survey and fill it out as thoroughly as you can, because your input will make a difference. Yeah,
But, and
absolutely.
also the reason why that discussion, is happening now is because we understand that it is going to be a problem, so equity is built into the process.
Right.
So it's not that we're gonna do this vision, all this stuff, and then we say, oh yeah, but we need to think about this place. And next we're like, no, it's from the foundation of the comp plan. It's built into it.
So it's money in the city, isn't it? I mean, where a lot of stuff can get corrected.
That's what we're trying to.
Yes,
That's what it is.
yes,
It's money.
And that's the thing, like what the planning man was saying.
The black man,
What I'm saying is that, this is a chance to set out what our vision is, and it will also be the North Star, and it will be what the priorities are.
And we have a commissioner as well.
I was just curious, the anticipated date for having a plan is when?
We hope to finish the update to the comprehensive plan by the end of the calendar year.
Okay.
Oh, good.
So definitely a document for prioritizing budgeting next year. I mean, we're going to start budgeting next week.
Yeah.
And these are, we have some very difficult decisions to make, is all I'm trying to say.
Yep.
And so just being able to listen as we make our way through this is very beneficial.
And I think we do want to be clear, we have a very condensed budget cycle this year. We have our dot talks launching next week. So Tuesdays of our vision summit, but then Wednesday's our first dot talk. We have 4 all over the community, but try to reach into as many parts of the city as we can. But we do recognize that there's going to be a bit of a gap, right? We have a brand new boss, a new county administrator. It's going to take him some time to finish his kind of realignment of our organization. We have a budget being decided by our commissioners. You get to be part of that process as well. It will take some time for this to catch up, but it also puts us in a position when it comes to all these federal funds to Ms. Hall's. Thank you. I'm sorry. We have lots of money that could come our way. This will start to articulate those plans in a way that put us in a better position to pursue those federal funds. So there are short-term financial gains to getting this plan together. And then eventually, we would like to see how the organization starts to realign as it's modernizing anyway. I mean, a lot of change happening at the UG right now.
I had to tag my car, so I do have to.
Is this PowerPoint available to us, or is that?
It'll be you'll see it on Tuesday, so it's still in production.
All right, well, I know we're over time, but thank you all for coming and having a great conversation. Thank you. Did you want to say something, Leslie?
Yeah, I just wanted to add in one quick comment just to end on some nerdy data things. Great point on, where did all of these things, these ideas, these matrices come from? So we started with our analysis and doing our benchline state of the economy conditions from a data perspective of where are we at, big picture. We're going to be sharing top level some of those findings, diving into those details on Tuesday. But if I may, if anyone is particularly interested in the nitty gritty and wants to come in, having done a little bit of homework, not assigned, of course, you can find the State of the Economy report on the Plan KCK website, on the UG website. You can't miss it because we colored it bright orange. So what you'll find in here we focus on 3 key topics of, what's the state of different industries in Kansas City, Kansas, and Wyandotte County, really big picture. What does employment look like? What does access to jobs look like? And what do top level market conditions look like for commercial land uses? Really important for economic development. This kind of data, then we're going to start to marry this with our conversations, and excited to get from the analysis to talking about people and talking with people. So again, feel free to check out the Plan KCK website, check out that snapshot. I'm really excited to meet you guys in person next week.
You too, Leslie.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Leslie. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.